exposing the hate and exploring the love. This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
Hola, this is Sienna inviting you to join me tonight as we navigate through the seen and the unseen, explore external and internal realities, expose on-world and off-world agendas, discover a path to joy and freedom. Now, join me as we illuminate the Shadowland and reclaim our birthright as free and sovereign beings. Good evening, everyone. This is Sienna, and this is episode 24 of Illuminating the Shadowland. I am so honored tonight to have with me as my special guests Kelly Lachey and Perry Mills.
Hello, Sienna.
Hi, Sienna.
I'm so excited to be doing this with you tonight. I want to mention a little bit, I really believe that most people on Truth Frequency know you both, but I want to say that Kelly Lachey has over 30 years of experience in reading energy and shamanic healing. Her expertise is in midwifing souls through their journey into the fifth dimension. She is the author of Liquid Mirror and co-author of Surfacing the Transformational Waves of 2012. Perry Mills, her partner, is a father, a husband, engineer. He's been working in aerospace for over 30 years, and through it all, he's been a very talented and dedicated truth seeker and healer. And now the two of them are stepping out with a whole new level of their work that they're calling the Love Revolution. And I was going to actually read the first little thing off of your website just to bring us into the energy of it before we dive into this incredible tour that you're doing, if that's all right with you too. Okay? So Kelly writes on her website, liquidmirror.org, Perry and I are pleased to announce that we will be doing an interview tour this year to support our journey together into the fifth dimension. 2013 was an amazing year in terms of having more access to the true history of our Earth. We are now well aware of the dark intentions of the controllers of the patriarchal matrix. It is up to us to break from the automatic thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that keep us in bondage and separated from an exuberant and fulfilling experience here. Our goal is to provide tools for you to take your power and sovereignty of your soul back for all eternity. Wow. That's amazing. Wow. This is so incredible. I have I just feel humbled and just really deeply connected to what you just said there. And while I'm experiencing all kinds of archontic snafus in the technology, including my list of questions going south and being inappropriately lodged elsewhere. Okay, I'm going to let you two start where you want to start. I was thinking to start with the Article 1 in this hour with you, Kelly,
Okay.
and ask you about that.
Okay.
You talk about tears of freedom that have been taken from us, and I wondered if that would be an appropriate question to start the conversation.
Yes, the overall picture of this material, and I'd like to prepare people that it is intense and it is emotional, and it's hard for people to digest this information. And at the same time, we are all responsible for the circumstances that we're living under right now. And there is a way to claim your sovereignty back from what you have to. And if we can take in awareness and understand what was taken from us and how and why, then that empowers us with awareness to take charge of the lives that we want to live. And that creates the ascension as well. So we're all doing this together. I know that this is a team effort that we're all doing together. And so we're bringing this information out to empower you, not to upset anyone or because the material is very intense. We're going to go into pornography and you can hear the emotion in my voice. It's, pretty heavy material in terms of what's happened to the feminine on the earth. So if we can back up a little bit in terms of, I'd like to refer to Andrew Bartzis and the amazing information that he has put out in terms of the true history of our earth. And the truth of the matter is, there's a dark being called Marduk that is operating the fourth dimension and operating religion and cultures and humans through religion and culture. And so I did this study, like a cross-cultural study of the sexual practices in pretty much most continents on the earth. And it's very disturbing what's happening to the feminine. Clitoris is being circumcised. Thousands. People don't realize how many women have circumcised clitorises. On top of that, sacred relationship is lost. The art of sacred love has been taken from us. And we can see it in our lives we're not getting along with our bosses, our children, our teenagers, our husbands and wives, and relationship has gone stale. And so that intimacy is lost, and deeper love that's available to us is literally what has been taken from us, and that is how we claim our sovereignty back.
Absolutely. I would really like you to say more about the various practices, mutilations, and what's going on with the feminine right now in our world, because there is a huge disinfo campaign that's been going on a long time, promoted by a lot of powerful women, that women have been liberated, that there is no longer a war against the sexes, that we are equal now. And I think as Americans, we are very insulated from the level of torture that is going on with the feminine. In your article, you take it right around the world, and I would actually like to hear a bit more of the specifics of that, if you wouldn't mind sharing it.
Okay. Well, let's start with the Sharia law. And Perry, you know a lot about the Sharia law. Can you describe that, please?
Well, as we know, in many of the countries of Africa and the Middle East, and working over to Pakistan, the Islamic Sharia law is enforced in many of those countries, less so in the more secular Islamic states. But even in those more secular Islamic states, it's quite common for there to be female subjugation and circumcision, and because a lot of these places are politically theocratic, what ends up happening is this general oppression of the feminine is enforceable as law, as political law, as social law, because the lines have been incredibly blurred between religious affiliation and the politics of their societies. So this is something that we're not hearing a whole lot about. Anything that has to do with the exposing of patriarchal subjugation of the feminine has been somehow omitted in the media. And Kelly's article is an attempt to just kind of pull the sheets or the shades off of the lies and the omissions of media about these kinds of patriarchal oppressions.
And I know that you're so dedicated to solution, both of you, but I really feel it's important that we look this straight in the eye. So I would like to hear more of the specifics.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll read that paragraph about the Middle East, and this is in Africa as well, very widespread. Under the Muslim religion, the Sharia law mandates that girls be circumcised. A man can marry an infant girl and consummate the marriage when she is 9 years old. A man can have up to 4 wives and is allowed to beat and rape his wives. A woman cannot drive a car or speak alone to a man who is not her husband or relative. It is illegal for a woman to drive, work, earn a degree, eat ice cream in public, or show any skin below the eye line. The police whip a woman if even an ankle is exposed. When a woman is raped by a man that is not her husband, she is punished with a long-term prison sentence. So I ask, why is that? What's happening? Who's behind the curtain of this?
Yes. What is the answer to that?
I believe that culture and religion is being operated by the dark beings that are in 4D. So we have the Draconian Queen and Marduk that are squelching the feminine.
All right, and we need to refer people to the wonderful 6-hour, 3-part podcast that you just both did on the Anunnaki with George Kavasilis. And how can people access that podcast? Because I think it's a prerequisite for really taking the next step into this information.
Yes, go to superwooradio.com, I believe is his website.
No, for the podcast. Yes, I think so. But it might be .com.au.
Yes.
Google it here. Yes, I think because he's in Australia, and it's well worth listening to that. There's so much detail, what you're talking about. You might want to do a bit of a recap because my listeners wouldn't have a clue, even though I have talked about the Dark Queen before. But it's fairly shocking to understand that at the top of the patriarchy is a female.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? So why don't you take over that part?
For our listeners who aren't that aware or underexposed to the wealth of information about the history of our planet, a lot of which could be gleaned from the works of Zecharia Sitchin on the Anunnaki, they can also be gleaned from listening to Andrew Bartz's as he talks about more expansive galactic interference or doings on our planet and involving us directly, genetically and continuously, even now, today, through invisible means and through puppeteering that they do with the patriarchy and religion and the New World Order. So basically, I think to kind of cap it in a small summary, there's growing awareness on the planet of the fact that there's extraterrestrial influence all around us and in our history, deeply embedded in our history and our genetics. And though that seems very scary in some ways, an awareness of that interference, you could say, or manipulation, an awareness of that is the first step toward gaining soul sovereignty against any kind of affiliation or with any of the ET influencers. So part of our message has to do with people wresting their soul sovereignty away from the manipulative, false reflections of their own identities as they walk through their lives pretty much unaware, just like we're speaking about these atrocities that are happening against the feminine. Well, most people in America are completely and blissfully unaware of this. So as we see of the behind the curtains of this manipulation, as soon as they're seen, they lose their power and their grip on you, at least on the most inner sovereign levels of yourself. And then we urge and we are coaching our listeners on how to wrest themselves from that manipulation and slowly gain back their soul sovereignty and all the layers of sovereignty that they express in their cultural lives.
Oh, beautifully said, Perry.
Yes, and the key thing to understand is that we're just pointing out how it's happening in other countries, but it's affecting Americans, and the Western mind is affected by this as well. We can see it in our relationships with each other, and we are being operated by culture. Culture operates the way we think and feel. So our thoughts and feelings are coming from something else unless we're in charge of our soul. So we have to examine our own lives where our relationships are reflecting lack of love and intimacy to claim back our sovereignty. So we're just as affected by it as anyone else. If people knew the amount of girls that are molested, even outside of the Illuminati, I mean, that's a big issue in and of itself, where it's completely, really defiling the feminine, and that's widespread in Western cultures. At the same time, there's men getting away with molesting their grandbabies and daughters all the time just because they need it that bad. Where did that come from?
Where did that come from?
Yeah, I wanted to point out as an adjunct to what Kelly just said is that we're not really out here to bash men or the masculine as much as we're out here to expose the kinds of manipulations, the psychological manipulations that masculinity has withstood, that turned male cultures and allowed patriarchy to grow to these kinds of monstrous detail. Since we're not trying to bash masculine, what we're really trying to do is just shine light on how many men of deep integrity don't even realize how they are being manipulated and are ending up being agents for this oppression of the feminine. And so in a sense it's an education, but it's a heartfelt appeal also for men to rediscover what the pure masculine virtue that lives inside of their maleness, what that virtue is again, so that we can turn this cultural sin, you could say, on its ear and gain back the dignity of the masculine, feminine, divine principles and virtues.
Oh, it's so true. And I know so many men, wonderful men that in their minds are really trying to do the right thing. And yet their gaze is continually looking at the piece of ash that walks down the street. They are absolutely mind controlled.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's so wounding. It's so shocking. It's like, wait a minute. It's so subliminal, the programming of the perversion. And I would like to talk a little bit about that as well. I know you've written about it in your article
Yes, it's
the programming.
It's painful. This is very painful for women. So first of all, we have a disease going on with pornography. So we have young boys that are addicted to pornography, and they believe that that is how they pleasure a woman. And the amount of women that have never had an orgasm before, much less a full body orgasm, it's vast. I'm learning this in my sessions with people. So men are not taught how to treat the feminine, how to respect and honor the feminine, how to nourish the feminine, how to love the feminine, how to pleasure the feminine. And so whereas the intimacy is just degrading day by day as we allow our cultures to be created by media, by Hollywood celebrities, by pornography. And all of the Hollywood movies have all this indoctrination in it. And so men are now addicted to cleavage, and we have this value system in the Western culture that youth and beauty is above depth and intimacy and love and honoring our elders. So it's up to us to take responsibility for recreating our culture through healing ourselves, our relationship with self, source, and each other.
It's so deep. It's because we are so invalidated as the feminine, and we internalize that shame and self-hatred and lack of self-worth, and really believe it as the core of our inner identity. And it's so painful to excavate that wounding and go, what? And stand when everybody is so mind addicted to the image of the silicone plastic surgery bodies and all that TV. I mean, now it's not even young people. It's the juicy thing is what, they're practically 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. You see it in ice skating. We are addicted like in this vampiric obsession that does seem to be coming from this interdimensional reptilian interference. It's
Yes.
a vampiric sucking of the energy of the life force out of children and out of the young, and then sexualizing it. And it's been going on a very long time.
Yes, and it's draining the energy from the masculine and the feminine, because the feminine is hurt by it and the men can't control their thoughts. They're always looking for the pretty woman down the street and can't be present with his woman. And then how can she feel safe and open up in intimacy when she doesn't feel safe? She doesn't feel safe if he's always distracted by younger women with cleavage.
And it's more than just getting a man who loves you. What we're talking about is the suppression of emotional intelligence, the suppression of the feminine intelligence, which is the intelligence how to fix the entire mess we're in, the intelligence to know how to connect back to nature, to make connections between people, to find solutions that are humane in the world and implemented. It is because there's that book called Vagina by Naomi, I forget, was it Watts? She talks about that this oppression and all the negativity of the vagina, the yoni, the female energy, is an attempt to completely obliterate our ability, even towards moving towards any kind of real self-worth, self-value, or sovereignty in an organic connection to life. And so therefore, all we have left are the controllers and all of this artificial consumerism and crap. Because we have lost all the juicy stuff, all the yummy, fulfilling, wonderful, deep heart connection. It's gone, gone, gone. And then they're just shoving all this other stuff at, well, who could resist that? I mean, we're sitting ducks for this agenda, and it is all, if women could rise, if the feminine and men could rise, if we could find the truth of that, people would wake up and go, well, yeah, it's a no-brainer that we aren't based on compassion, that we're destroying our mother planet, that we're destroying the connections in the family, that we're wounding everything that's worth living for.
Oh, so beautifully said, Sienna.
And felt.
Yes.
Well, I can do that in your presence because I feel your wounding and your deep heart space, and it's very painful to be holding your message right now. And I know we're not the only people holding this message. This message is rising from the core of this ascension process. But I'm feeling the pain that you're holding to bring it forth, and this is where we need to get to. We need to be willing to get through it, to go through it, to get to it. And so I'm very grateful for you two, for your presence and your dedication in bringing this out, even though it isn't comfortable to hear. Once we really awaken to it, it's game over, in my opinion. When people realize what they've really been stolen from them and how it's being stolen, they will rise. Okay.
Yes.
So,
and if I may add, I got this information off of the internet. I saw real footage, hours and hours and hours and hours of painful footage, and I have links to every piece of footage that I saw on my article so people can see this for themselves. But I prepare you that it's graphic and incredibly painful. So I spent last year in a deep emotional process of digesting all of this. And the bigger picture is even more disturbing than what we've shared so far.
And you did that to break the programming, to break the trance, right? I mean, isn't that what all of us need to do? We can't just let you do it. No. We need to. Where are those links? How can we get to those links, Kelly?
They're on my article, and my article is posted on my website. And there's a footnote to everything that I refer to. And so at the end notes, you can click on each piece of footage to see what I'm talking about.
We're going to go to break in about 3 minutes. And I am speechless. Where do we go next? Let me pull up my wonderful sabotaged list of questions. It does create a very deep silence when one feels the level of this. So the next question, and we'll pick it up after break, is how do we reclaim our sovereignty back from this level of disease culture?
Okay.
Now, we still have a couple minutes here, Kelly. Maybe you just want to give out your liquid mirror information and how to get hold before we go to the break.
Okay. My website is liquidmirror.org, just like it's spelled. And my email address is on my website as well, and that's kellylachey@gmail.com.
All right. And also, I do want to point out that you do couples work, you do addiction breaking, you do sovereignty, you work with people directly to help them excavate the part of themselves that have been collapsed through all of this. Because let's face it, people, this is a very deep wounding that forces us into becoming such complicit with such monstrous, inhuman behavior. And we need support for coming through this, and somebody who really is willing to not run away when the going gets tough. And I suspect, I haven't had a session with you, Kelly, but I suspect you hold an extraordinary space for people to move through these things.
Yes, thank you. I use soul retrieval, which I learned from the Keto. It's a very powerful shamanic healing tool, and I'm very honored and grateful that I got to learn from them and Alberto Vialdo. It's a powerful healing techniques that I've witnessed people changing their lives with it. And the tools in Liquid Mirror as well teach people how to do a proactive self-healing program for themselves, to go dive deep into yourself and create the life that you want, the intimacy that you're craving. And I've seen great results with this work, yes.
Well, I love the way that your information, your workbook, your work is so simply put that we really can do this. And a lot of people will be able to get the workbook and your Liquid Mirror book and go through it on their own. And I encourage everyone who's listening, who's resonating with this, to do just that. We'll be right back. This is Sienna Lee. I'm here with Kelly Lachey and Perry Mills on Illuminating the Shadowland. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. This is Sienna Leah with Illuminating the Shadowland. I'm here with my guests tonight, Kelly Lachey and Perry Mills. Perry, I wanted to ask you a bit about your article. I'd like to read a little brief paragraph from the beginning of your article and then dive into a bit about that, if I may.
Surely.
After a long bout of hopeless perspective, the soul within me and within each of us loses enough self-respect that it decides to risk claiming back its soul sovereignty from painful humiliation. Each of us is now faced with just such a task, and it cannot be done for us by any outside agency, social movement, or religion. It must start personally where it matters most, and it must end personally with a sense of satisfaction that you have fulfilled your own requirements to gain back your self-respect, your dignity, and your goodness on your own terms. This unfolding rescue that you and I do for ourselves is the journey to soul sovereignty. That just speaks so much to me, and I know to many of our listeners. But Kelly, you talk about bartering bits, like borrowing power is what every person does when he or she leans on the support of family, government, tradition, and religion. And I would really like to hear you speak to that, if you would, please.
I think, yeah. This journey to sovereignty, as one of the things that seems to be apparent with humankind in general, is that they really aren't living their own lives. What they're living are programs that were injected and infused into their growing personalities through religion and through ethnicity and gender and all the different cultural bias that hits them. So this overlaying of many false identities that are concocted by your context, your culture, your life is all, in a sense, not your own. And so when this journey to sovereignty is a response to the helplessness and the hopelessness, the powerlessness of being defined by others. And with an awakening to your soul sovereignty, you find that you sit at the center of the power. But in order to get there, you have to dislodge all of the falseness that is living inside your own psyche, your own heart, your own belief systems. So a lot of what our work is kind of excavating the natural, beautiful, soulful self that each of us is. From this overlay, this mountain of overlaying lies, that once they get a sense, if they can be shown where they've been caught, where their living lies in other people's programs, once they see that, it doesn't take long before they start awakening to their own self-empowerment, and that's really what we all want.
What are some of what you're seeing with your clients, in your world right now, because things are changing. The lies, the deceptions are coming up at the same time that there's still masses of people being mind controlled into this trance state and buying all of the garbage in massive heaps of amount. But still, there are people that are starting to get it, and of course this is partly due to the incredible hardship that these power elites that are controlled to these off-world, fourth-dimensional predators are. It's amazing to me that these predators think that they can continually get away with it. Well, they have gotten away with it for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And so they probably don't even believe that they can't get away with it. How is this going to shift? I mean, how is this shifting as you're seeing it happening in the people that are starting to break the chains? I know I went in about 20 circles there, but just jump in wherever you like.
I can say that in my sessions, I'm privileged and honored to work with people that are sharing the underbelly of what they're working on. And this is what inspired me to do this all together, the men I get to work with. And there's one man in particular that inspired me to no end, because he's awakening and he's seeing that, why am I distracted by cleavage? And I want to love my girlfriend, but I'm always looking over there and I can't stay present with her. So he's asking to bring his divine masculine out and heal from the patriarchal matrix, consciously asking for that.
Well, what is the divine masculine that needs to come out? Because here we have this super suppressed and tortured and tormented feminine, and yet the men have been tortured and tormented and seem to have lost their power and their cojones and seem clueless about even where to go with any of this. What is the divine masculine?
Yeah, it's
that
such
can
a vast,
be the,
yeah. It's such a vast subject because also the relationship between the masculine and feminine are fighting. And when we don't even have communication skills to know how to get along. So that's the main overarching thing that we're working on here. But let's start with the divine masculine, and if you could.
Yeah, I would like to add a little more context, because this is such a broad subject.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm seeing is that you're right, that there is a lot of men who are trying. There's a lot of people who are awakening, who are seeing how they've been manipulated in this, that, or the other way, and a lot of sensitive beings now, especially at this time, that are wanting to make a difference, but are really left with not many tools other than just simple awareness. And the awareness is only as good as the information. So part of what I think is important with sovereignty, and with love, and with those more divine masculine and feminine virtues that live within all of these lives that we are encrusted with, is that, in effect, you're right, there's no energy left, because the controlling matrix and all the different facets of it are making sure that people do not get to the sacred. So what do they do is they keep everybody scarce, and they're over-secularizing the world cultures. Though, except where you've got fanaticism in certain religious groups in third world countries, what you're seeing in the so-called modern world is a drive toward the scientific secular definition of life. So as soon as they take the sacred out of the being, they also take the potential for love out of the being. And it turned relationships into practical situations with titillations and fashion and sexuality, very surface sexuality. All of that has very little to do with the sacred part of love or sacred sexuality. So in a sense, what I believe has to happen is that people have to be shown how they have had the sacred taken out of their lives by these controlling factions. Once they start to believe in the sacred again, then this journey to intimacy is actually a journey to love, and it's a journey to self-empowerment. And when you have a group of people that are alive to their own love, then nothing can control you from the outside, which is why they keep people scarce, and they're driving sacred away and out and replacing it with these more secular versions of culture.
And then when people do get all wild and passionate and in love with God, it's an external God. And this is a huge confusion.
Yes.
Because we need to reinvent sacred practice, don't we? I mean, even in our connection to God and to Source. Now there's so much information about us farming out our worship to manipulative 4D predators posing as our gods. Mm-hmm. So how do we open our hearts in deep devotion to ourselves? I mean, there's a fractal of each one of us that is the creation of all that is. But how do we engage in this worship to open our hearts to the sacred, that we even can be present for ourselves again or for another person?
Such a beautiful question, and that's why we're doing this, because we do have a way to show people how to do this, and our lives have become richer since we started practicing ceremony. And I've had an extensive shamanic training, but in general, shamanism is kept just for a few select shamans. Like in South America, you have to be born into it to be even trained. But the Quero in Peru released it to Westerners because it needs to be released, because they know that the earth needs this. And so let me define shamanism in the way I describe it. I describe shamanism as developing right relationship with self, source, the earth, the sun, and each other. And we've created a practice through ceremony to enact that. So we have a place to grow and anchor our love and heal. So there's several steps to it. First, you have to start with self. And so we have an altar, and we light candles, and we take, once a week, we spend a whole day in ceremony. And we've been doing this for, I guess 3 years. Mm-hmm. And all of our intentions in ceremony come true. And so the power of our intention to heal ourselves and heal each other is so immense. And this is something that people need to understand, is the power of our intention. So we use ceremony to anchor our intentions. So for example, when we're working on something to heal ourselves, like something that is self-contradiction or fear, we have a stone that represents something that will absorb that from us, and we release it through breath. Whatever I'm dealing with, an emotional issue or an insecurity or feeling overwhelmed, I blow it into the stone, and it pulls it out of me. And then I replace it with the opposite truth and intend that opposite truth inside of me. So I start with healing myself. Then in terms of with Source, I spend time with Source. I don't talk at it or pray. I don't meditate in silence and just sit there waiting for someone to talk to me. I actually reach out specifically to the being that loves me immensely, and I start asking questions. And then I sit and listen. And we can tell, and a lot of people are afraid. Just the session I had this morning, people are afraid of communing with their allies because we've been told that there's dark ones, and you're probably talking to an archangel, but we can't be afraid of that. That's just, we're just sharing that part of it because we need to be aware that those beings are there. But that doesn't mean we should doubt our capacity to commune with Source and with our oversoul. And our
How
allies.
do you make that distinction? What do you call out for? Because this is really important. I know that I have released a lot of information on this radio show about the false light and the false dark, and I truly want to put out there authentic ways of evoking a deep, deep connection with what is sacred that isn't entrapping our souls in outsourcing our energies.
Yes.
How do you, yeah.
The way we do it is we have to take time to sit back and ask questions and listen. And with the intention that we're only communing with those that have our highest good in their intention. And when we get answers, we know how to recognize bad advice, right? We're not stupid. We know how to recognize bad advice. So why would we mistrust who we're talking to if we would know how to recognize bad advice? So over the years that I've grown closer and closer with the earth and the sun and Source and my oversoul, which I call my avatar, I've gained so much clarity and strength and guidance in terms of how I live my life. And so much support, the invisible support that people are missing. We feel lost and abandoned. And that's why it's so worth it to drop in and feel that invisible support. And not to mention all of the soul families that are here watching this ascension process and surrounding us and doing everything in their power. What do you need? Ask us. We'll help you. We're here to help you.
Well, it's really heartening to hear this because I've been through that existential crisis where I'm afraid to call out and ask for anything because I'm afraid of who's going to answer.
Right.
But I've just recently started initiating a prayer practice with high discernment, and it's completely shifting my energy into the sense of being in love with the beloved, which is the creator of all that is, and I am a fractal of all of that, so it's loving myself, and it's all an organic connection, and then suddenly I'm in love with life, and the colors come alive and the smells come alive, and I no longer have to have someone else to turn me on and to open me up because I'm flowing, and it's so easy to access this if we have authentic ways of doing it. But the thing is, we have to get to some place of authentic presence in order to even access that. And what you're talking about are all the false identities in your article when you're talking about getting so disgusted with ourselves when we finally awaken to it. We've become these robotic clones of a construct that does not have our best interest at heart. And so we become these really self-punishing shadow reflections of something that is so far away from any authentic presence that I don't think in that state we can access the divine. Do you?
I say highly unlikely. One of the things that you're speaking to, and thank you for sharing your process recently, because this is just the kind of thing that we're trying to teach others. The idea of sacred space is, I think, probably one of the most important precursors to really doing ceremony work with yourself. And so, in a sense, there's this building of an energy of reverence and of trust that Source does want you to have support, that it is ready to support you. And most of the times, and if I could risk this, I would say a lot of people have a God betrayal issue. And the God betrayal issue is something that would be one of the first things that has to be addressed. Because most people really feel like they've been abandoned while they watch a world run aground, run amok, and they're going, what God could this be? What could God be that would allow such a thing? So with that, a fair amount of suspicion that people have with the sacred, built by this, what I'm going to call a wound that we're calling the God betrayal, there has to be basically a recapitulation and reconciliation right there. That'd be the number one first place to start. And it really, I think what the final analysis should be is that when you now create a sacred space after having dealt with God in a more reverent and private way, that sacred space holds you safely. Just like you want to believe that God would hold us all safely as individuals, not as a group, but as a group also, but mainly as an individual, personally.
But I mean, still, what is the difference between worshiping God? I mean, I can't even say the God word anymore from what I've seen done to the feminine in the name of God all these years. The war, almost every religion was fought against. I mean, we have to go back to Marduk in this discussion. I mean, humanity has offered up their holy souls to Marduk for centuries, and you see these evangelistics and these Baptists, praying and screaming. Their lives are complete shit, excuse my French. Nothing is changing, and they are giving themselves away in the most deep reverence to this false god all over this planet. So, I mean, this is something I need to understand better. And then there's the New Age. I mean, go to these New Age ceremonies, and I feel like I'm being suffocated because there's no real integration in the shadow, in the real deep soul. They're all offering this, Barbie doll version energetically of worship. So I do sense the authenticity of the two of you, that you're doing a real connect. But I know for myself and my listeners, I still need to understand this better. I think we need to go a little, yeah?
I can share my process with that. Do we have time or?
We do. We have about 7 more minutes for this hour.
Okay. My process with Source. So first of all, where did the betrayal come from? Because this was intended by Marduk through Christianity and Catholicism. And even if we're never practiced a religion, it's in our culture, so our minds are automatically controlled to believe that we've been betrayed by God. It's very, very subtle, and to be ashamed of our bodies and our sensuality and so forth. So the way I've connected with Source is, okay, first of all, I know you didn't betray me. That's stupid. How your Creator doesn't care about its creation? What an insult! Creators care about their creations. And so I call he, she. I call it he, she, because it is masculine and feminine in its purest archetypal form. It cares immensely about its creations, and we are created as creators just as one with it. So when we created the universe, we were one with Creator, and right now we're incarnate as split-offs of Creator. To pleasure.
So
Creator.
do you believe that we are gods and goddesses in our own right, and that we will go on to create, and we are creating galaxies and universes, that there is no God greater than what we are? I mean, there's that sense of...
Yes and no, because we can't have a relationship with Source when we're incarnate if we're not reverent with it. So the way I've developed a personal, very intimate relationship with Source, and very loving, by the way, immensely loving. I've cried with Source. I have felt its unconditional love for me, and it has healed me and guided me on my path to make me who I am. So the way I've done that is, even when I'm in the worst depressed situation where I'm hopeless, I say, thank you, Creator, for my existence. Thank you for my life here. Thank you for all the gifts you've given me thus far. And I will be listening to your guidance. Please speak through me. How may I serve you? Because your love blows me away.
It's a very humble, tender, totally broken open of all the illusion place. It just feels like this very raw, and as the purity just pouring out of the place that you're holding. That is why I really hold you as a very dear, dear wayshower and teacher for all of us at this time, because I can feel the level of broken openness, excuse me, the dark night that you've been through and you continually put yourself through, to hold that space with what is authentic. And I can believe you in that. I think that there's a huge journey you went through to get to where you are. Well, there's so much negative energy trying to shut this down. Yeah. Oh, well, what else is new? Yeah, but, well, these are very, very big topics and great study, and we can only cover them even in 2 hours in a kind of overview and superficial way. But I encourage people to dive deeply into your work. Soon we'll be birthing Rise Multiversity, where people will have an opportunity to engage and be supported much more in being able to differentiate between what is false and what is real. Because quite honestly, in the midst of this, it's challenging even to know at times for people, don't you think? I mean, because people wanted to be loyal to Marduk and the false gods and Catholicism and religion. They worked so hard. I can hear it all around the world. They're like, what? You know, Daddy hates me? Daddy's trying to vampirize my energy? He's a pervert? He's a psychopath? That's a hard thing to swallow when you have given your whole life for your country or for your job or to your church. It's tough.
Yeah.
And so it's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful to hear you say, no, we just need to reframe it, everybody. Yeah. We haven't been betrayed. We have only been betrayed by the false light.
So
and
true.
By the false representation of God.
Absolutely. So this journey to sovereignty, you mentioned all the Marduk-driven religious structures, and people are betrayed, or they're counting on their religion to hold them in a safe way. I think that part of this healing process is how we, and this is what we do, is we, in a sense, we draw attention and show light on the areas where we're trading our sovereignty for borrowed power from structures like a religion or politics or your gender bias. Those little trade-offs get us to where we're not in direct connection anymore with our sourcing. And so we go through these third parties, whether it's the culture or religion, and because we're going through third parties, naturally we have plenty of suspicion, and we're not getting a clean read in our hearts with what it is that we truly need. We're just encouraging and showing people how to make more direct, ultimately very direct and personal connection with their source from within, so that no one can get in the middle and confuse the issue of who you are and what is possible for you.
There's been a heck of a lot in the middle confusing the issue. That's been our world. Everything in the middle. Everything confusing.
Yes.
And we've been loyal to it. We've been pledging allegiance to it.
Yes. And even the New Age community, all of the whistleblowing and all of the different contributors, in a sense, they're not helping a whole lot, because they're really soft on really addressing this thing at the core, which has to do with that personal relationship with your own empowerment with Source, living right inside your own heart, right inside of you. It's direct. It's that close.
That's right. We need to wake up to this too. The alternative media, a lot of these people, bless their hearts, they are speaking a lot of truth, but they're shut down. They're shut down, and they aren't energetically that much different than everything they're screaming at.
It's so true. It's sad and true. And
this is the end of part 1, I'm afraid. We're going to be back. We're going to be back next Friday night for another hour with Kelly Lachey and Perry Mills. This is Illuminating the Shadowland, liquidmirror.org. You all, bless you. We send our love to you, and join us next week for part 2 of Our Road to Sovereignty. Good night.